Pokemon trainers, what's going on? Today we're going to hop right into a steamy Pokemon battle between myself, Zach, and Joe. We've got two big topics. We're coming at it from different sides, hence the Pokemon battles. Our big topic that we're going to save for the end is whether or not Pokopia, Pokemon Pokopia, is a better game than Requiem. Why are we versing these two games together? We're going to talk about that, but they're maybe a little more similar than you guys think, even though they seem like polar opposites. But the topic that we're going to start with, that we also have different opinions on, is the release window for Gen 10, Pokemon Winds and Waves. When is that game coming out? Is it late 2027? Is it early 2027? Is it something else entirely? That's what we're going to dive into. And the cool thing is, we're both probably going to have slightly different opinions, and you guys can let us know in the comments who wins. Joe, how do you feel if you lose this? How are you going to feel?
Man, you know, I'm pretty loose. I'm pretty used to losing, so we're not too bad.
You can't be defeated.
No, you're right. You're right,
my guy.
Hold on,
coming strong.
Let me psych myself up. I will be devastated, and I'm gonna quit the podcast if I lose.
Okay, cool. Well, we just started the podcast, so now's a great time to quit.
You know, whoever wins. We'll throw up a little badge. We'll give the winner a little badge.
Oh, that's
or
good.
Something.
We are bros and badges, dude. We gotta do that. All right, whoever wins gets a badge. Yeah.
There we go. We decided that on the fly.
So we're going to dive right into our first topic, which is, the Gen 10 release window for Pokemon Winds and Waves. I'm kind of, I don't want to spoil my load here, but I'm kind of leaning towards either a middle or late 2027 release. Joe, we were talking and you said potentially earlier 2027 is how you're feeling. Let's talk about that. What would lead us to believe late 2027 and what would lead us to believe early 2027? What are your thoughts on early 2027?
Yeah, I mean, unfortunately, I think a lot of it is just me being hopelessly optimistic. I don't want to wait until late 2027, and I think a lot of people.
Me neither.
I think once that 2027 popped up, I think everyone's heart sank because we had just seen the most beautiful looking Pokemon game ever, and then we're told, no, you're not getting it for quite some time. So I think of a lot of it.
So let's briefly talk. You just mentioned this too, and this is very interesting. I'm helping you in your debate actually, but what was that? Someone just released like a list of like games that like were slated. And like it showed kind of like the pipeline for what Nintendo was working on, like early 2020, 2021. Tell me a little bit about that.
Yeah, so that's a great point. Right before the podcast, actually, my phone decided to pass me some fire tips on what I can bring up in this debate. It seems that we've had some SKU releases for the Switch 2's early game development. So we see things such as Street Fighter 6 coming, Donkey Kong Bonanza. So all things that released in this past, 2025 release window for the Switch 2. And strangely enough, it would seem that Winds and Waves appear on that list. Now, this is weird because not only did Winds and Waves not come out in 2025, it will not be coming out seemingly in 2026, but rather 2027. So this points to the fact that maybe Game Freak and the Pokemon Company weren't looking to release this so late in the life cycle. And I say that even though it'll only be 2 years by that point. But it does seem like this was looking to be an earlier release. So it kind of makes me wonder, were things pushed back because of ZA's development? Were things pushed back because of Scarlet and Violet? I'm not too sure. Obviously, everything is speculation. Even the actual SKU information that we have, I would say take it with a grain of salt. But I do think that there is a real chance here that they have been sitting on this game for quite some time. And everything from this point on is quality assurance. And I mean, if you look at the trailer, I think anyone would agree this is probably the best looking Pokemon trailer we've ever gotten. For one, things are running, right? If you remember the Scarlet and Violet trailer, people just looking at that were like, whoa, this thing is chugging. Same thing with ZA. I think until we saw the Switch 2 upgrade, it left a lot to be desired, if you will. So I do think that is a good point in favor of it maybe already being at least almost complete game. And maybe they're just holding off to make sure everything's good, no complaining, no windmills. not running correctly. So that's kind of my thought process there. That, along with the fact that Legends Arceus released in January of 2022, so we know a January release isn't unrealistic for them. I feel good about it. I feel like there's a real chance that the game is ready and playable, at least more playable than Scarlet and Violet. And they're just making sure that everything is good to go. No more complaints. This is going to be a content complete and hopefully complete in general game. So that's where I'm coming from, Zach. But you, on the other hand, want to be devil's advocate and evil and put the negative energy that it's going to come out later, which I don't completely disagree. But why don't you kind of...
Well, it's funny you mentioned Arceus. It's funny you mentioned Arceus because that's actually kind of my ace in the hole.
Oh, no.
You know what I'm saying? Because when they announced that game, they announced it. And what did they tell us? They told us it was coming out in early 2022.
All right. You got me.
And then afterwards, they almost immediately announced Scarlet and Violet, which was crazy. Clearly, their release schedule and window has changed a lot. We can't really expect the whole one Pokemon game a year thing anymore, or at least definitely not for mainline. This is the longest. I will say this is the longest, window between mainline releases we've had for Gen 10 between Gen 9. It's kind of insane. I know they count the Legends games now also as mainline, but my brain, when I say mainline, it still means Gen 10.
Well, remember, those are sidelined for those who didn't see last podcast.
Those are sideline games. Games. But I think the fact that they told us when that game was going to come out, the release window, like the fact that it was early 2022 is kind of just why I think if it was going to be early 2027, they already would have told us, especially since they are announcing it so far out in advance. The fact that it's early 2025 now, I just think that if it was going to be early, they would have told us that. That said, it is strange. It is strange that the game looks so polished, like it's so ready to go in comparison to when Legends ZA came out, when they announced that game. When they announced that game, all we saw was essentially a graphics trailer, like a story. This is an idea of a game. It was just a teaser. We didn't see any gameplay. It was just cinematic footage that they put together. It wasn't even like cinematic footage from the game. Realistically,
it was literally just a CGI cutscene that they made.
They showed that, and that game did not come out till over a year later. They showed us like early 2024, early-ish, and then it didn't come out till late 2025, October 2025. So it is strange that game didn't have much. So it kind of made sense why that game didn't come out till late the next year, because we really weren't seeing much for the game. So it clearly needed a lot of polishing, a lot of work. Whereas this one, we've seen a lot. It is bizarre that we've seen so much of the game. It already looks so good, and it's not coming out till 2027. But that said, I just think they would have told us the release window if it was going to be early. And I also, this is weird. I think late 2027 is the most reasonable expectation, just because we know Pokemon likes that window. They've not always, like obviously Arceus was the exception, but usually they use holiday as their release window. It's kind of just the Pokemon release window, which is why I think if they're going to wait till 2027 anyway, they're probably just going to wait till October, November again.
Good point.
Because it's probably stuck in their heads that that's when they make the most sales. And let's be real, Pokemon likes money. So does Nintendo. They're businesses. And that holiday window is pretty important. That said, I could see a debate. I have been thinking this. I would love it. I don't know if it's accurate, but I would love it if Pokemon Winds and Waves came out in summer, to be honest. It could be the first big mainline summer release for a Pokemon game. Because, look at it. It's Winds and Waves. Like, you look at that, you want to go out, you want to hang out with your friends by the beach. I don't know. It's just like summertime vibes. I would love if that game came out in summer. I actually think that would be ideal for it. Which could be why then they're not giving us an early 2027 release window. Maybe it's like mid 2027. I will say I'm having a hard time being like, wow, it looks this good, this ready to go. It's not going to come out till late 2027. I'll give you that. But sadly, my heart is like, if I want it in summer, if I want it early 2027, it's not going to be till late 2027.
Yeah.
So that's where I'm leaning. That's at least my thought on it. I also think there is talk that maybe it was supposed to be late this year. And potentially there's just a much bigger game that Nintendo wants to make room for. Maybe this is 3D Mario. Maybe it's his time. Everyone keeps talking about that game. Sidebar, I'm kind of surprised everyone thinks they're going to release like the trailer for that game before the Mario movie comes out. I just think that's
definitely not going to happen.
They're not going to. Nintendo is very much a company that they focus on one thing at a time, especially if they think and it's at all that it aligns with a certain IP, and they're like, no, the focus of Mario right now is the Mario movie. If there is a 3D Mario in the works, it's not going to get announced till after the movie comes out. They're going to focus on the movie, and then they're going to focus on the game. That'll become a whole new thing. I do think there's a strong chance it comes out this year, and maybe that's why Winds and Waves actually got pushed. There's also the debate that maybe it got pushed because of Grand Theft Auto. That's going to be the biggest game of the year by far, easily. Yeah. And so, you know, as much as people are like, oh, well, Nintendo isn't in the same ballpark. They're not competing. They still see it that way to an extent. I'm sure they'd be willing to put out one big game against it, such as a 3D Mario, but they're not going to want to put Winds and Waves and 3D Mario out in the same time frame as Grand Theft Auto. They're just not going to. Nintendo does think about these things. I know a lot of fans think they don't, but they do. They're a business. So yeah, I think there's a lot of reasons it got pushed. It does look like it was ready for this year. I think we can kind of both agree on that. Like, I think 100%. If they wanted to, it could have dropped late 2026 easily.
Dude, if they wanted to, it could have dropped in 2024 looking like Scarlet and Violet 2. So I do think there's a lot to say. And you do make a great point with the GTA. Would they really want to release their best Pokemon game to date, which this is, again, seemingly looking like it's going to be, to compete with a game that is probably going to be Rockstar's greatest game ever made? You know, it's just in comparison going to look like Scarlet and Violet again. And that's not by any means saying that Game Freak isn't putting a lot of work into this game. It's just Rockstar has been putting, 13 years into GTA 5 literally came out in 2013. So, I mean, it's going to look like a drastic difference. So that is a great point as to why it may have been pushed.
Look, if you don't have to fight Goliath, why fight Goliath?
Yeah, turn around, man. Turn around.
Turn around, dog.
Yeah. But I will say that does also make me feel like early can still kind of work. And what I mean by that is we know that GTA is coming out the end of this year. Supposedly, you know, that's what they're saying, but who knows? You know this development hell it's been in. I wouldn't be surprised.
You watch Pokemon's like, you know what? We're gonna give Grand Theft Auto time to breathe. We're gonna wait to release it next year, and then Grand Theft Auto gets pushed, and they come out at the same time anyway.
Yeah, exactly. It's gonna be pushed to 2027. So, I mean, but I let's take their word for it. It does seem like they're really ramping up production. So, let's say it does come out. I do think that after a holiday season, when it comes to gaming, you know, we do see sales kind of ramp up of everything, obviously, because of the holidays. You know, console sales go up, video game sales go up. Everybody's kind of finally getting in, you know, their final wishes for what they wish they got at the, you know, throughout the year. But then we hit January and February. Those months specifically, I mean, I will say this February that we just had was pretty stacked, to be fair. But a lot of the times, January, February, March, they are slower months, you know, when it comes to game releases. Because, and I think that comes from a standpoint of they don't want to kind of put out their game really early in the year, because then by the end of the year, people kind of forget. We look at something like Monster Hunter Wilds, which released early last year. And everybody loved it, but by the end of the year, nobody was really talking about it as much. So I think early, you know, in the year releases tend to be slept on in terms of like, you know, being put out. So could Pokemon fill that gap? They did it with Arceus, and I'll say it worked in their favor pretty well. Actually, in all honesty, more so than their remates. Brilliant Diamond and Shining Pearl. I think Arceus went on to be, and yes, it may be because Arceus is the better game, but I do like to think a lot of it has to do with like the timing. I think the timing is so interesting. It hits at a time where, you know, people are more likely at home, right? We have a lot of winter breaks. We have a lot of, you know, in certain places, actual winter, so you're inside. I just think it gives you kind of more of a chance to hunker down, play these games, and so that's why I think early 2027 could, even though it's still close in proximity to something like a GTA, I still think it'll have enough space where you see like the life cycle of a game is so fast now, right? A game drops and by a week later, everyone experienced everything in it. They're looking for their next thing. I know GTA is going to be huge, but all I'm saying is these people play through games like you wouldn't believe. Gamers are... Look, Pokopia just released. We just spoke about how big that game is. People have beat that game and completely changed it to their liking. I mean, it is crazy how fast gamers work.
There's already people that have played over like 100, over 200 plus hours on that game, which is just insane.
Mind you, we're on week 2, so it's like, how is this possible?
But I got to stick with my guns. There's just something about it. I feel like it's going to be late 2027. And it's just like, it seems like the development for games in general just keeps skyrocketing in terms of how long it takes. We've seen it with Nintendo. We've seen it with the Pokemon Company. It's weird. Like before last year, I would have said, oh no, it's 100% going to come out early 2027, just based on how quickly they like to get games out. But it does seem like, especially with this game, they are taking their dear sweet time. They're like, we don't want any complaints. We want this to come out and be just the best possible version of itself. So yeah, I'm still leaning towards late 2027. But if I am wrong, my friend, I will be so happy because I want to play that game as soon as humanly possible.
Amen, brother. Amen. I do want to pose one more. I have one more question in regards to this that maybe, I mean, it does kind of play more into your side, so maybe it's foolish for me to bring it up. But something else interesting happened in the last year, and I do kind of wonder if that has something to do with it as well, and that is Game Freak is releasing another game. There's Beast of Reincarnations, which is a non-Nintendo game. It does seem like they're putting quite a bit of their chips into this game. So it does
actually,
make me...
That's a great topic. When does that game come out? Have they announced a release window?
You know what?
Because if it's late 2026, then I think that tells us a lot about what happened with this,
So it looks like what I'm seeing is it's set to release August 4th, 2026.
So I kept thinking like maybe they do have another like secret, like it could be a smaller title that they are going to release towards the end of the year. But this makes a lot more sense. Like, yeah, obviously it's Beast of Reincarnation. That's what they've been working on. So at least for them, that is in the development pipeline. And maybe that is another reason why they pushed off the release of Gen 10.
Yeah,
that's very interesting.
I think it's a really interesting topic because, like, from a Game Freak perspective, they're kind of filling all the holes. Like, in terms of like release windows, they kind of got it covered. But from what's interesting to me is from a Pokemon Company perspective, is it enough? Like, is Beast of Reincarnations going to satiate Game Freak to the point that the Pokemon Company doesn't feel the need to have a holiday release? Because I do think it's strange. I mean, you can see how important holiday releases are to Pokemon off of Brilliant Diamond, Shining Pearl alone. The fact that that is a remake, which tends to be just as, held in just as high regards to whatever game comes out that generation. I mean, you look at X and Y and Omega Ruby and Alpha Sapphire, those games are held to the same standard. But then you look at Brilliant Diamond, Shining Pearl and Legends Arceus, and we're not quite there. There is a disconnect. It does seem like Brilliant Diamond, Shining Pearl is like a lesser of the two. So it does make me think, are they, like you said, are they going to drop something? Can there be a Gen 5 remake?
I know what they're going to drop. It's easy, actually.
Yeah, really?
Well, I think it's pretty easy, actually. I mean, we already know Champions is coming out. So realistically, for Game Freak, this year is pretty stacked. They
completely.
Just dropped Pokopia. They've got they've got Champions coming, and then it's not coming to Switch that we know of. It maybe it gets announced for Switch 2 at some point, but Beast of Reincarnation, they are working on that game. So like that's a pretty full year for them, and if they're working on Winds and Waves at the same time, just doing whatever tweaks necessary to get it out. That's a lot. That is a lot for one company. That said, I think they're gonna, if anything, they'll give us a bone and they'll drop like Heart Gold, Soul Silver, or they'll drop Alpha Sapphire, Omega Ruby. Oh, yeah. Or, I don't know. I just think it's going to be something like that. It's going to be It's going to be one of those games. They've already set a precedence now with Leaf Green and Fire Red that they can just do that to tide us over. So I feel like I'd be surprised actually if later in the year we don't see the next iteration of Leaf Green, Fire Red, whatever game they decide to drop, for $20.
It being like Emerald or something. I think the sales alone will kind of push that in their head. Yeah, so I do think it's a big year for Game Freak. I think you're so right in pointing out like they don't need to. Like Winds and Waves actually coming out this year would kind of be them underplaying like their hand, because
totally
here they have this perfect game plan, right? Pokopia now, April we get Champions. That is going to be the competitive future of Pokemon. So this is covering VGC. We're now giving something to that core base of like competitive gamers. Beast of Reincarnations comes out. All of the hardcore like PS5 players are gonna finally get a taste of a Game Freak IP, and this is looking to satiate exactly what that style of gamer is looking for. And then if they throw in another remake being put on the eShop, anything, whether it be Heart Gold, Soul Silver, whether it be even just Emerald, Diamond, Pearl, whatever, insert your favorite Pokemon game here. It is going to sell like crazy.
Never underestimate how well just re-releasing old Pokemon games is going to do.
Oh yeah. We've been begging for it. And I think that's at the end of the day, that's what it comes down to, is just if Game Freak just wanted to print money, just remake your old games, and that's why
100%.
That's why anytime someone says that Game Freak is just lazy, I kind of roll my eyes, because I'm like, they could be way lazier than anybody could imagine.
Than they are.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
So when I see Winds and Waves and I'm like, you think this is lazy? Fire Red and Leaf Green sold millions, and these games came out when I was in elementary school. So, I mean, people just don't understand the level. There's levels to this, okay? But
also, I'm sorry, but there is a reason that Pokemon is still one of the, if not the biggest IPs in the world.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Whether you like some of their graphics and stuff at times, they are a smart business.
Yes.
Like they just
very
are.
Much so.
They have a good plan for why they release things the way they do. They have a machine in terms of like everything kind of coincides with each other between the anime, the cards, the games, the movies, the TV projects as well. Like they're a whole corporation. They've got everything. They've got parks, they do it all. So it is a lot, honestly, to manage, and I think they do a decent job. The past few years, I think they've done not as good of a job, but it actually seems like they're ramping up, and they're being wiser about the releases, and I do think that's again part of the reason why late 2027 is my guess. But I'm gonna leave it on that. I think we should let the people in the comments, like, who won. Well, Joe, do you think I won, or do you think you won?
I mean, man, it's hard to think I won. I'm still pushing for it, but you definitely raised some good points, and I am looking at the situation a lot differently than I was, before it. So I think you did your job there. What about me? Did I drill any of those points home?
Dude, I mean, I will admit the number one thing for me is like, I can't disagree with you on the fact that the game just looks so ready to go that it is really hard to believe it's coming out late 2027. Hard to believe from a like, wait, why don't they just drop it sooner? Like it looks like it's almost ready to go. And that's when I want to play it. So if you're right, I will be a happy camper. I still think I'm right, though.
Well, they'll let us know in the comments below. And also, if you guys have any other idea or theory, we would love to hear it. So just let us know, when do you think it's coming out and why? Because,
early 2027. Do you guys like the summer idea, or do you think it's late 2027? Or something we haven't talked about yet, do you think it's going to get delayed again? I don't think so, but that would be crazy.
Don't put it out there.
I know. I'm sorry, Pokemon fans. I put that in the ether. But let's move on to our next topic and our next battle, if you will, which is kind of a crazy topic. Let's be real. But Pokopia versus Requiem. Pokemon Pokopia versus Resident Evil Requiem. Why are we talking about this, Joe?
Well, you know what? They're both.
This is my idea. So I'll tell you why we're talking about it. I'm not going to put it on you. I had this idea because it's actually crazy how similar in certain ways those games are, just in terms of they released around the same time. We had Requiem release, and then almost right afterwards we had Pokopia. They're both on Switch 2. You can play both of those games there. And they have gotten incredibly similar review scores. From a critic standpoint, Pokopia is now sitting at an 89 on Metacritic. And Joe, I believe Requiem is the same, right?
Yeah, also 89. So literally reviewed the same, which is crazy.
We just thought this would be a fun mashup because obviously the games are very different tonally, but they are still big games that you can play on Nintendo Switch too. Yeah. And Requiem obviously you can play on other platforms as well. Pokopia, we're stuck on the Switch, but that's fine. That's where we like it. Anyway, Joe, tell me a little bit about, let's look at these review scores real quick before we dive too much into the topic. With Pokopia, we've got 84 critic reviews sitting in an 89. And then we also have the user score based on 880 user ratings at 8.6. Now, we did talk about this a little bit off the podcast, but Pokopia also did get heavily review bombed. So if we're adjusting for review bombs, adjusting for inflation, I'd say realistically the user score is probably would sit maybe closer to about a 9, but let's just say it's 8.6. Regardless, we got a user score of about 8.6, which is still incredibly high. Yeah. And then an 89 from critics. What about Requiem?
Yeah, so Resident Evil Requiem is, as we mentioned, also critically at an 89, and that is reviewed with 128 critics. So, not much more than Pokopia. But what's really interesting is that user score. That user score is going to be at a 9.4, which is fantastic, wonderful, made sense. But what makes it so interesting is the amount of user ratings. For Requiem, we have 11,915. So quite a difference from the 800 from Pokopia, which is a little crazy to me. I will say Resident Evil Requiem is on more platforms, so it does kind of open up the amount of user ratings, but it is kind of crazy to me just how much of a difference there is.
That's insane. That already tells us an absolute ton of people are playing Resident Evil. No surprise. Yeah. Only one of the biggest franchises in history and in all of gaming. But still, that is impressive. I'm not going to say that's a win for Requiem, because it has more ratings, because we're not really basing it on that. We're actually just trying to base this on which is a better game objectively, which is kind of crazy because, again, they are so different. Yeah. But, Joe, we both have some different ideas about this, but partly because I have not played Resident Evil Requiem or Requiem. I don't know how you're supposed to say that. I always want to say Requiem, but it kind of sounds like I'm a snob at a library with a glass of wine. Requiem. I don't know.
I almost Requiem, want you to say it like that. But I will tell you, I say Requiem. But if you want to go Requiem, I would absolutely be open to that. I'm going to
keep being the snob, then Requiem.
Good. I like
so
that.
Snobby.
I like it. Look, I have played Resident Evil Requiem. And to be, again, quite candid with everyone here, that as of right now is my game of the year. I know we're early on, but I will say I do think it will last for quite some time. I had an incredible time with this game, and I'll be honest, it is my first 10 out of 10 game experience I've had in quite some time. I can't even remember the last game that I personally gave a 10 out of 10. It was a fantastic game. If I was being like super critical, I would say maybe closer to a 9.8, but and really the only reason is replayability. For those of you who play Resident Evil, you know that the campaigns are usually on the shorter end. They're meant to be played multiple times, run through, and kind of broken, if you will, once you know how to solve certain puzzles. The game really begins. So the first playthrough is more like you're trying to enjoy the story, the vibe. The second playthrough is I'm not scared of this shadow creature anymore. I'm gonna run and just get the high score. Finish under 4 hours so I can get infinite ammo. It is a great system that they have set up. The only thing I will say is that I did want a little more to play afterwards. Resident Evil 4 has, and a lot of Resident Evils, the more action-y ones, have a mode called Mercenaries mode, which is kind of like an arcadey. You go around, kill zombies, you have a timer, you see how many you could kill. You could extend your timer by doing combos and stuff. It's really fun, but it really extends the life of the game. So I do think I'd be at a hard 10, a very, very hard 10 if that was added. And we are getting some DLC. They already announced.
They did just announce DLC for the game, which is story DLC, which is really cool.
So there's story DLC, and then they said something about a mini game that they're working on, which I'm hoping is that. But
you might get some version of your mini game.
So that'd be cool. But yeah,
all right. So that sounds like then you're obviously for Resident Evil Requiem.
I'm fighting for Requiem.
That's your pitch.
I'm hard fighting for Requiem.
That's your pitch. All right. So I gotta say, the reason I haven't played Resident Evil Requiem is I'm just not a survival horror fan. I'm not really like a horror fan of games, which is funny because I do like horror movies. For some reason, like playing video games, like horror games, just scare the heck out of me. We talked actually early on when you started playing the game, and you said that like it was one of the scariest games you'd played. Yeah. Which that actually partly convinced me even more not to get the game. I was like, nope, I'm good.
Yeah, you actually said, you were like, thank you for, you were like, now I know definitely not to. Yeah.
You saved me some headache because I actually was debating getting it. Like, it looks amazing.
Yeah.
I've played some of Resident Evil 4, like the remake, and it's really fun. I'm like, it's weird. I'm actually kind of obsessed with the Resident Evil franchise from a like outside perspective. I think it's like such a cool franchise. I get too much fear, I've got fear and FOMO at the same time, which is a bad combination.
Very bad combination. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. But it's fun. I'm very excited and happy that the game is doing as well as it is. And I absolutely love the idea, like the mechanic of the game where you get to choose between the protagonists. You've got Grace and you've got Leon. The fact that you can play it more of like the survival horror from her side, and then you can play it more the action side from Leon, which is just awesome. That's such a cool mechanic. When I saw that, like in not the reveal trailer, but like I think it was, I don't know, some award show they showed that off.
Yeah, it was at the Game Awards is when they announced Leon.
It was the Game Awards. Yeah. That was so cool. So cool. That said, I am more for Pokemon Pokopia because I've actually played a decent amount of the game at this point. I should be further in the story, but I've actually spent just so much time like in habitats trying to get more Pokemon, trying to increase their comfort levels, stuff like that, crafting, planting. I'm actually playing a little bit with my sister here and there because she loves it too, so she's helping me play the game, which is great. The funny thing is she loves doing crafting and like planting and stuff, and I'm more like, I want to do the story, so we're like both kind of like doing a little bit here and there, which is really fun. But the game is incredible. I would say so far for me, it is my game of the year. Pokopia is definitely my game of the year. But let's be real. It is early in the year. There's going to be more games.
Yeah.
I'm a huge Fire Emblem fan, so Fire Emblem may take the cake once that comes out. It's hard to say.
Forgot that was even dropping.
Right. We don't know a release date, but it is supposed to come out sometime this year. That said, I just think this game is incredible. Even since the last time we spoke on the podcast, I've warmed to it even more because I mentioned in that podcast, I think, that I'm not as much of a builder fan usually. I really enjoyed Animal Crossing. But there is something just so fun and charming about this game, and like the gameplay loop really latches onto you. I didn't think it was going to be enough when I first, saw the trailer, and then even when I started, I was like, is this really going to hook me for this long? The loop of constantly building habitats, attracting new Pokemon to your little towns, rebuilding the towns, you're like rebuilding Pokemon centers, you're raising the comfort level of like the town as a whole and of your Pokemon. And I kind of just thought, like, is there going to be more? Is there like mini games? Is there like what else is there? But oddly, that is what the game is, and it is more than enough because there are just so many systems just in that, like the fact that you can transform into so many different types of Pokemon, use their abilities, whether that be like your hands transform and you're just using their abilities, and I'm not going to spoil it, but there are like also weird just other transformations like you've seen in the trailer. You've seen Dragonite, you've seen Lapras. I've already experienced a couple other transformations that you can like fully transform into, and you just look like that Pokemon and you get to use those abilities, and it's like so fun. Ways that like speed up how quickly you move that you didn't expect. There's like ways that like buff your abilities to where you can plant more at one time, or you can break harder things. Like, I don't know, there's just like so many mechanics in place, and I think that Omega Force has just knocked this out of the park. It is truly incredible. Part of me, I will admit, I will say this, part of me when I'm playing it sometimes thinks, am I just doing chores? I'm just like checking them off the list, or am I actually having fun? But then again, it doesn't matter because I still keep wanting to go back to it. I do just keep wanting to go back to it. And at the crux of it all is the Pokemon. The Pokemon are so charming, so fun to like have conversations with. I've seen a little bit more personality out of the Pokemon now too, that I've played a little further into the game. I don't think there is like personality driven still as like an Animal Crossing where you've got like the angry villager, you've got the happy villager, you've got the dorky one or something. But there are little things that the Pokemon add to it too. Like, you know, some of them are a little more standoffish. Some of them are a little more excitable. Like you do see elements of that. And just the fact that there's so many of them and they're all like running around and playing with each other and hanging out. Like it's such a cool vibe. And you know what the best part about this game is, Joe?
What is that
part? It doesn't scare the crap out of me. It doesn't. It doesn't leave me wanting to run in fear. There is a mystery element, I will say. That's maybe another kind of bridge between these two games. Obviously, in Resident Evil Requiem, there's Requiem. I can't do it.
You really? Yeah. I mean, that's really how. Yeah. Listen,
I've locked in.
Let your Requiem rock.
But I know there's like a mystery element to those games too, and there is a mystery element in Pokopia. Yeah, you are trying to solve the mystery of what happened to the towns, what happened to this world, which, by the way, the world is very clearly at times based on the old games. Like you've got your towns that resemble Pallet Town. I don't know how, like they don't resemble it to a T, but there is just this like this feeling of like, oh, I bet I'm in Vermilion City right now, or I bet I'm in, you know, in Pallet Town right now. Like it's so charming that they did pull from the old games, and there's so many nods to the classic games, and you are trying to figure out what happened to the humans in the game. I won't spoil it. Some people think that all the humans are just gone. Something bad happened to them. Some people think they just ran away. But I'm slowly uncovering like the pieces to that mystery, and it's like super fun. I'm trying not to get spoiled myself. I don't know yet. But yeah, there's all these clues that you're finding that just make it so fun to like figure out what the storyline is. But anyway, Joe, convince me why Requiem is better than Pokopia.
Yeah, I mean, luckily I have a little bit more insight as I did play some Pokopia. And I listen, Zach, I'll be honest with you. I thought that game was pretty terrifying. You know, seeing a dilapidated Pokemon Center is a little intense. And I play at nighttime, so it plays some spooky music. I remember when I went on the like SS Anne, like the boat in the second area, and I was like, did Pokemon like really kill the humans? Like I was early on, so I'm like, did we really have like a mass extinction event? Because this is crazy. While that's not the case, I will say, Zach, you did a fantastic job of really pinpointing what makes the game so great. I think you pretty much, you know, bundled it all up and presented it perfectly. It is a fantastic game, and there's no way like really around it. If we weren't doing this podcast, I would like to say like let both goats live. You know, they're both so great.
No,
but we're not. We're battling
the other,
and I'm gonna end Pokopia. I just think, for the type of gamer I am, I will understand. You know, I will say I understand Resident Evil is not for everybody. It is genuinely at times terrifying in a way that I think I'm a big fan of horror movies as well, Zach, and I could tell you the difference. In a horror movie, you're looking at the person and you're going, "You're so stupid. The killer's there." In the game, you're like, "Oh my God, I'm so stupid. The killer's there." So it's not.
I will say the little bit that I played of Resident Evil 4 remake, that's how I felt. Yeah, it was me running around being like, "Why am I so stupid?
Yeah, exactly.
Why is everyone trying to kill me?" Like,
let me tell you, you will never feel more stupid than playing as Grace, having 2 bullets. You shoot both of those bullets, knowing very well it's not going to kill the zombie because they don't die in 2 bullets. But you're scared. You're scared. You don't have a choice.
Anyway.
You shoot those 2 bullets and you miss both of them. They're just gone now. So I understand it's not everyone's cup of tea, but what I will say is what this game did for the Resident Evil franchise is where I'm going to hit this home, that I think it deserves to be considered the better game of the two. I think that Resident Evil has had a very turbulent rise in popularity and fall, right? You see Resident Evil 1 to 5 were, and more so I'd say 1 to 4, it was this slow increase of like, you know, cult following to like, wow, this is a media franchise that is going to be built to last. Then we get 5. 5 was interesting because it was like 4, but a little more actiony. We didn't get Leon. We didn't get the cool little emo guy. We got the ripped, buff Chris. And, you know, it was a fun game. That was actually my first Resident Evil, which is why I'm very fond of it. And I do think people are starting to like it now. But at the time, it was kind of a big departure from we'll say Resident Evil 1, definitely 2 and 3. Like those three are vastly different from a 5, and even a little bit to a 4. But then we got Resident Evil 6, which was Call of Duty. It was third person Call of Duty. There's really no way around it. You were running around, jumping off helicopters, landing on buildings, and it was crazy. I don't know what they were doing. It hit at an interesting time. Then we had Resident Evil 7, which was literal in every sense of the word, game changing. This took Resident Evil, the game famous for being third person. I mean, literally one of the creators of a style of game, that being survival horror, in the way it was done, just completely dropped that, said, no, you know what? New protagonist, smaller story, way smaller scale. We're in a house now. We're in a little house in Louisiana. One family. I mean, you do kind of go on a boat, but we don't have to talk about that. You had this quieter, scarier game. And this came at a time where like PT came out, Silent Hills, what would have been Silent Hills. And it kind of filled that gap. And 7 did something that was very different, and it just really stuck to horror. 8 came out. 8 did a kind of a cool thing where it was kind of the Resident Evil 4 of the first person games. And then we had the remakes. Now the remakes are interesting because what all of this did was kind of build this pyramid, right? Where we had this foundation of what Resident Evil was becoming, more horror focused. We had these remakes, which took the original horror focused games and kind of repackaged them in a way that modernized them. All of this was leading to the crescendo, which is Resident Evil 9 Requiem. This game isn't just the 9th entry. It is the perfect blending of two styles of games that are on their own worthy of 10 out of 10s. Resident Evil 7 is a fantastic horror game. Resident Evil 4 is probably considered one of the greatest games of all time. This game is literally both of those games together and brought to the next level. When you're controlling Grace, you are controlling the best version of first-person Resident Evil that we've had to date. It's fantastic. She's wonderful to play as, super scary, super fun. Puzzles are great. When you're playing as Leon, you are sprinting down hallways, drop-kicking zombies, and then Leon standing up saying a one-liner. It's impossible to not feel like you're the coolest person in the room. It's just built perfectly. And what I think the difference between a game like Pokopia and Resident Evil Requiem is, other than the zombies, it's one focuses on building a game that will last infinitely, that being Pokopia, because it will last infinitely. Whereas Requiem goes, you know what? We're going to give you the tightest 8 to 10 hours that you will possibly ever experience. I mean, there was maybe one part where I was like, this is dragging a little bit. And I can see that argument happening for other players as well. But what you're getting is this tight 8 to 10 hour experience. Some people beat it faster. That is just fun all the way through. And it really crescendos the story, the gameplay, just everything kind of is at its peak here. So for that reason, I just think not only what it does in game, but what it does in our real world for the franchise and setting it forward, I just think it is incredible. Capcom really put their best foot forward with this game. They finally showed us why the remakes were done. It was to create this actual timeline that like is now woven into the games. We have this like fantastic through line that someone could use could play RE2 remake all the way to, RE3 remake, RE4 remake, then play Resident Evil 7, 8, and 9, and you have a story there. It's fantastic. They really thought it out. So for that reason, I just have to say, like, I respect what Pokopia is. I respect what it does for Pokemon. I think it's fantastic. But you can't play as Leon in Pokopia. You can't have. But
you can play as a very derpy faced Ditto in Pokopia.
That is true. That is true. So why don't you tell me more? Tell me more. Tell me why you think Pokopia is so much better than Resident Evil Requiem.
Well, first off, I gotta say that you did an incredible job explaining that, going through like the different games and kind of how that that contributes to this game and really just like the impact that Resident Evil Requiem has had. So I don't know, you swayed me there, man. You gave me even more FOMO, but I also have just as much fear. So again, I'm probably never going to play this game.
Fair enough.
That said, I'll give you another brief little slice of why I think Pokopia is the better game, the game of the year. I just think again, it comes back to I'm not a builder. Like, I don't even really like building games. And somehow this game hooked me. And if it hooked me, someone who's not even into that, like, that says something. Now, I am a Pokemon fan, so it is playing off of Pokemon nostalgia. So we could make the argument that, well, you know, you're biased. You only like this because you like Animal Crossing and you like Pokemon. You put them together, it just makes sense. Put them together, it just makes sense. But anyway, that said, there are so many people who have played this game who said that they don't even like Pokemon, or they have been uninterested in the Pokemon franchise for a super long time. And I think that just the fact that so many of those reviewers are talking about what an incredible game it is and that it has reinvigorated them for the Pokemon franchise, it's got them back into that gameplay loop. They're excited about Pokemon again. That in of itself does wins and waves, you know, in terms of just showing you what this game does. It does create a gameplay loop that you can enjoy whether you like Pokemon or not, whether you like building things or not, crafting things or not. I think the thing that you keep coming back to is a combination. There is this kind of gotcha mechanic where you're not spending money in the game. You don't have to spend any money, but it almost feels like, oh, they got me, because I do just want to go fix that one Pokemon's habitat, make it a little better. Oh, like I just talked to Charmander and he wants me to give him a toy. I can do that real quick. Like, yeah, why not? Why not, buddy? You can have a little statue in your habitat. Why not? Oh, I can go turn into this Pokemon if I just go talk to this person. I get a new transformation. Why not? I'll go do that. Oh, there's a dream island that I can go visit, and they've got an event right now where Hoppip's visiting at the time of recording this. You can get Hoppip to join your little town. You can get Jumploom, Skiploom. I don't know, like the fact that they already have these events going on like this quick out the gate, and it's like exciting. They're giving you new reasons to come and explore, and the game just dropped. Like, clearly they're gonna have more content for this game that's gonna steadily release throughout the year, probably even next year. It's gonna have a good lifespan. I'm always excited when I get a new Pokemon trace. Like, you collect these traces of Pokemon that tells you kind of like what habitat to build to attract a certain Pokemon. I don't know. It's like catching Pokemon all over again, but in a new way that's like fun and exciting. Like, at times, like in some of the games, like, oh, okay, I got to go catch an Arcanine right now just to complete my Pokedex. This doesn't feel like I'm completing a Pokedex. It truly feels like I'm just collecting friends because the Pokemon are so much more like expressive and emotive. They're running around. You know, like they give you items. They're like, oh, you're my best friend. Like, I wanted to give you this thing. Or like, Zach, you want to go do jump rope with me right now? Like, you know, like they'll ask you to do mini games. Like, there's just so much going on. And I also really like that if you're not a builder, one of the fun parts about this game is a lot of things are built up because it has the disaster element. And this is a world where clearly something happened, some catastrophe. There will be like structures like half in place that if you wanted, you could kind of just fix up those structures and call it a day. There's even some like little build spots where there is like a house that, like, oh, if you just bring the resources, it's going to build that house. And you get recipes for things, you get kits for a house, so you don't have to build it brick by brick. If you want, like, oh, like you could just be content and be like, whatever gray house in the game gives you, you can just build that. Like, they've got 20 plus different types of houses that you can build without having to manually do it yourself, as long as you collect the resources. So even if you're not a designer, this game is still fun, but you get the thrill of being a designer. You know, this game has so much to it. There are so many mechanics and systems in place. It's beautifully made. The Pokemon are so much fun. And yeah, I don't know. That's my debate. That's why I think it's game of the year. But realistically, we're going to leave it up to you guys in the comments to let us know who you think won, who you think is better. You know, am I better? Is Joe better? I'm just kidding. That's not the debate. The debate is Requiem a better game or is Pokopia a better game? But I am gonna add a little final nail in the coffin, Joe. This is my pièce de résistance. I feel like I have to win because we're at Pokemon channel. Like,
yeah, true.
The Pokemon game's, you know what? Gotta win. The Pokemon game.
Let's scratch it off. As a matter of fact, I'm on the Pokopia Game Freak. You're getting Game of the Year. every year. I think both are wonderful games. So as that said, everybody, let us know in the comment section below. Maybe not what the best game is. I mean, we would love to hear that if you actually have insight. But are you guys playing these games on Switch too? Are you enjoying them? I think both of these games are amazing and have me so excited for what the Switch 2 is going to give us, just in general. And yeah, I mean, there's not much more to say. Pokopia, Resident Evil, Requiem, fantastic games. And I think no matter what, we're both winning because we have some of the best games on this library that we're able to play on the go.
It's good to have a Switch 2 right now. It is great to have a Switch 2 right now. Very, very good. There's some really heavy hitting games, and that's awesome. We're winning either way. But let us know in the comments again who won the wins and waves debate. When do you think the game's coming out? Which game do you think is better, Pokopia or Resident Evil Requiem? Who gets the badge? You know, we might have to design a badge or something. And,
we will.
Yeah, we will see you all on the next podcast. Thank you so much. Bros and Badges out.